Welcome back, Falcons fans. This is your Atlanta Falcons Fan Show. It's your boy Rice Lewis back again to talk more Falcons with you. We have another special guest with us today, Daniel Flick on Sports Illustrated Falcons reporter. How are you doing today, sir?
Awesome, man. Pleasure to be here. How you doing?
Hi, man. I'm doing pretty well, man. Another day, another day looking at the team, man. We got camp going on right now. I know you've kept a big eye on that. You've kept up with things that have been happening at camp. Right. A lot of interesting, storylines, I think, for people. And, we'll just go ahead and dive right into that. And I just want to get your opinion so far we'll get on a certain position on the Falcons right now, offensive line. Obviously, that's one of the most questionable positions of this entire team. And, I heard Arthur Smith joke the other day about somebody asked him about who's standing out in the team. He was like, there's people you would expect, Matthews and Lundstrom. Right. So, we don't know if that's like what he really meant or he's joking. But what have you heard from that position? I know there was a training video that the Falcons Kevin Knight put out, Mayfield getting beat by, I can't remember his name right now.
D'Angelo.
Getting beat. And that did not look good at all for him, especially if a lot of people are selling all of the Jalen Mayfield stock. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, starting off left guard with Mayfield. Elijah Wilkinson's been the first team left guard for the last 5 days, I believe. So Mayfield got the first. He was with the first team on the first day of camp, and it's been all downhill since then for him. The one-on-one reps obviously were not kind to him. He lost the rep with D'Angelo with the viral video. And then he also lost reps to Bryce Rogers and Nick Thurman. So I think those were his only 3 reps, and he went 0 for 3. So Justin Schaefer might actually be knocked on the back step there for second team left guard at the rate that Mayfield's going. Wilkinson seems pretty safe. I was actually watching some of his film last night when he was with Chicago last year. He's pretty solid, man. Like, he's got some pop in his hands and really impressive leg drive, I'd say. So the interesting thing about him, he's never played left guard before. So he's a right tackle, right guard at all of his prior stops. So putting him at left guard is kind of interesting. I think Arthur Smith mentioned that they figured left guard might be his strongest spot in minicamp. So kind of interesting. Might be an adjustment for him, but he's been all right so far. Not setting the world on fire. I'd say that his starting spot's more because Mayfield's been struggling so much. Competition's not over, but it really feels like it's getting late pretty quick for him. As for center, it's been a straight alternate between Drew Dalman and Matt Hennessy. Just straight up flip-flopping every single day. So I don't really think anyone has the edge there yet. Arthur Smith mentioned he wants command in the room. So, whichever one he feels like has more command, especially with, Ritter possibly starting towards the end of the year. Very, very important. The other spot up for grabs, right tackle. Caleb McGarry has started every single practice so far, right tackle. So Jermaine Ifedi's had an okay camp, but right now McGarry seems to be the favorite.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, with everything going on, I know everybody feels like the success of this offense is going to depend if the offensive line can hold up. And obviously getting those positions filled and knowing you have your best person at every spot is important. I think, Elijah could be a steady guard, which, I mean, hey, if you're getting steady, that's an upgrade of whatever happened last year with Mayfield. And it sucks that he's still struggling. I know some people also pointed out in that video that they just said he had poor technique, which is one reason why he got beat. And it's just one of those things that you were hoping he could correct in his second year, but it seems like he's still struggling with the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see if there's even a chance that his job could be in jeopardy by the time we get down to the 53-man roster, especially if Schaefer plays well and maybe can claim that number 2 spot on the offensive line. But so with that being said, then we got to go to the people behind the offensive line. Right. Obviously, Arthur Smith has already mentioned that Mariota will be the starter this year at quarterback to start the season. Some people were a little surprised by that. They thought the whole offense in competition. But they said, yeah, Mariota's the guy. But I do feel like they're still looking at Ritter and putting him in certain situations and seeing his growth and development, seeing which plays work for him, which he's comfortable with. What have you seen and heard about the 2 quarterbacks? How is Ritter coming along? I've heard a lot of Mariota knows the offense he's just playing. Ritter, rookie, learning the offense, having to think before he executes.
Yeah, I think Ritter's actually been pretty impressive so far. You're right. A lot of the talk out of camp is that Mariota's like so sharp, and he has. He's been good, fairly consistent. They had a 2-minute drill yesterday that Mariota was just head and shoulders above Ritter. But all things considered, Ritter has probably exceeded my expectations so far. Coming out of Cincinnati, I had very, very big questions about his accuracy. If you go back and look at my Twitter feed from January, you'd see some pretty questionable takes on there for right now. But, his talent's starting to show. I mean, a lot of people have questioned, his arm talent. I don't have any questions about that. Athleticism, arm strength, and again, accuracy has been very impressive so far. The one thing for me that's really stood out is his composure. In all the interviews, on the field, everything. He just looks calm. All eyes are on him. Like Atlanta, I don't think a lot of people are talking about how Atlanta's had Matt Ryan, as steady as can be a quarterback for 14 years. Right. And now, Ritter has a chance. I think a lot of people view him as a guy that could be like the long-term solution there. So there's all eyes are on him, right? All this pressure, everything, he hasn't shown any of it yet, so he's been pretty impressive for sure. Mariota's been, I'd say, pretty good as well. For sure, a little bit better than Ritter, I'd say, but, as expected. For Mariota, the thing a lot of people aren't talking about, he never really had a chance to sit and learn in Tennessee. He was a starter from the second he got drafted. So I really think the last 2 years could be a really big positive for him moving forward. So I'm excited to see how he can, perform in live game action. Accuracy-wise, he's been a little bit up and down. But, I mean, his athleticism and just natural playmaking moxie, I'd say, are just really, really impressive. So, so far, obviously, we're not getting game reps from them yet. And I think preseason starts about 10 days. So that'll be really the first big measuring stick. But so far, I'd say the quarterbacks as a whole have been pretty solid.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the same things you're hearing pretty much. They've been pretty solid. I mean, I think what you've heard and what you've seen is kind of what you expect. And I have to sometimes tell people, like, it's okay that Ritter's not going to be thrown out there day one, or he's not, doing certain things. Because, listen, at the end of the day, we're expecting him like he's a first-round pick. And like, we got to get him on the field and see, because everybody wants to know, do we need to start tanking or not? But at the same time, you got to make sure you give him the best chance to succeed. And so I hope that they take their time with him, and hopefully he's ready whenever, if his name is called, end up being called this season.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go to the defensive side of the ball now. And, I just want to get your opinion. I'm going to ask you about the general defense as a whole. Is there any players that you have been intrigued to watch this training camp? Any guys standing out to you outside of guys like AJ and Casey and Grady that, it's like, all right, these are guys who right now look like they're having a pretty good camp, either making the team or someone who could be maybe a fringe starter for the Falcons defense?
Yeah, I'll start Troy Anderson, rookie out of Montana State. I've seen some very, very encouraging things from him. Coverage-wise, I think he's been very, very impressive. I think a lot of people were concerned about the adjustment from the FCS to the NFL. And the staff has admitted there's some things there as far as intellect and maybe just understanding how the NFL operates as far as, schematics. But he's just so athletic, man. It's really, we're at the point right now where his athleticism is just, overcoming all of the maybe shortcomings he's got mentally, perhaps. At the current moment, obviously I think he's always been an upside guy. So I think there's a chance that he sees considerable reps. So with, I'd say, with the amount of passing and overall reps that you get in the NFL these days in nickel, he'll probably see a considerable amount of snaps, I would say, because he's just so good in coverage. So I think there's a fair chance that he ends up, I don't think he'll start. I want to clarify that. I don't think he'll start, but I think there's a fair chance he ends up seeing maybe 20 snaps a game, which for a guy that, entered the league as more of a long-term play, I think that'd be a very encouraging start. Moving on, Richie Grant, I think a lot of people circle him as a breakout guy, and so far he's done that. He's lived up to it. I think Kevin Knight had a tweet the other day that said Kyle Pitts has been uncoverable. The only people who, held their own are AJ Terrell and Richie Grant. So if you're in company with AJ Terrell, you're doing something right. Richie, all the clips, everything, he's been really sticky. He's always been super athletic, and he's really showing it this year. I think tackling for him is a very big question, so that's something that still has to be answered. But I think as he, matures physically and adjusts to NFL strength, he'll be all right. I'm trying to think here about like up front. Nick Thurman was a guy that Arthur Smith highlighted in minicamp as a guy that had a shot, he said, to help the pass rush, and he probably had his strongest day of camp yet yesterday. We were talking about Tangelo earlier, the guy who got the pressure on Mayfield. He had a couple pressures yesterday. I think he beat Drew Dahlman pretty bad too.
Yeah, I heard.
So he's definitely off to a good start. I think he's like 6'1", a tick under 300. So height, frame-wise, pretty similar to Jarrett. So pretty encouraging, I'd say, so far, his start in camp, because I don't think he entered with very high expectations from the outside. Timmy Horn, nose tackle from Kansas State, undrafted rookie as well. He's also made some plays so far. Those guys are all more practice squad guys, I'd say, at this point, but pretty encouraging start nonetheless. Also want to touch on Isaiah Oliver real quick. Recovering from his ACL. So far, he's been kind of working back in with the first team, I'd say. Has a very, very big brace on his right knee that hopefully he'll get off here pretty soon. But he has been playing first and second team for the most part, and playing pretty well, I'd say.
All right, those are encouraging signs. I think importantly, for defense this year, Arthur Smith, I think, really wants to find depth on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that, this year, some of the players we're bringing in, and sometimes if you can hit on some undrafted free agents or some lower round draft picks, just creating that depth is going to be important, especially for a team that's salary cap strapped as the Falcons are, hitting on those guys and, developing. Because I always say, one thing about the Falcons this year, it's always hard, I always say, when you have a young team, because people don't talk about the Falcons are a very young team. So, there's a lot of guys who, I always say offensively, you had Ritter start, you got rookie, you got Algier, who people think he'll be the starting running back. That's a rookie. Kyle Pitts is in his second year. Drake London is a rookie. Brian Edwards is in his third year. That's not like we have a lot of veterans out there playing for us. So right. I think that's going to be, the big thing right there. And so my last question to you before I let you go is shifting back to the opposite side of the ball. Obviously, the receiver position has a lot of competition there. There's a lot of guys who could make the roster, but there's some guys who may not. Some people think the Falcons may keep up to 6 receivers. Some people even say maybe 7, depending. What are you thinking about the Falcons? How many receivers are going to keep, and who may have a good track right now? We know Drake, probably Edwards, and I guess maybe Zacchaeus, maybe locks to make the roster. Who are the other 3 or 4 that you probably think could make it to the 53-man?
Yeah, so I would tend to lean more on the 5 to 6 range, and here's why. Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts are for sure, for me, the 2 big reasons there. Arthur Smith said Patterson will move around quite a bit this year, so I think you might see him out wide a little bit more, which would allow Algier to see a bit more reps at running back. So I would think Patterson might take away a roster spot from a receiver. And I'll also say that, Pitts, as much as they play him split out, will probably play a part in that decision as well. I think Zacchaeus probably is very safe for a roster spot. Damiere Byrd, I think, has a pretty good shot of making the roster. So, after that, I don't want to forget anybody here. I think you're probably looking at like Auden Tate, Kadero Hodge, Frank Darby's probably in that mix as well. Those are some of the guys. I would give Auden Tate the edge right now in that race. A few undrafted guys. Stanley Berryhill from Arizona has had a very strong camp. He's always open, man. He had his first drop at camp yesterday. We're talking about a guy who's open, can catch the football, and is a very, very good route runner. So, talking long-term picture here, like a potential undrafted slot, it seems like, every year a new undrafted slot from a few years ago ends up becoming a really big player. The Patriots have done it for so many years. But I think he's an interesting guy. Jared Bernhardt, former lacrosse player from Maryland. I think he played quarterback at like Ferris State or something like that. He's been impressing the team as well in camp as another potential slot. I think him and Berryhill are probably more practice squad guys, but pretty encouraging signs there. So I think the room ends up probably being Drake, Edwards, Zacchaeus, Bird, and then I think they might only carry 5, and I'm going to give Auden Tate the edge for right now.
Okay. I mean, hey, I think, with the competition they have, that's not bad. And I always tell people, hey, don't forget practice squad. They might put some guys on there. So, you'll still be able to keep some of that depth on the roster unless someone, poaches them away. So, it'll be important to see what happens there. And actually, I'm asking one more question before I let you ask.
Yeah, that's fine, man. I got time.
Going back to the defensive side of the ball, what have you heard about the 2 rookie ends and D'Angelo and Ezekwe? What are you hearing from them? I know they've been. I mean, a lot of expectations are they're going to be the 2 bookend pass rushers this year. What are you hearing from them? How are their camps going?
Right. I'd say so far it's been. I'd say it's been about what you'd expect from rookie pass rushers. I would say that playing outside linebacker in particular is probably one of the harder transitions you can make because a lot of these guys, especially in Malone's case, he's 240 and he's a rocked up 240. I think Ted Monacchino, the Falcons outside linebackers coach, said he's like the most well-built 240-pound player he's ever seen. So not to take anything away from him or whatever, but he's going from Conference USA up into the NFL trenches. So it's a bit of an adjustment for him. He's been all right. His one-on-one reps yesterday weren't great. Ebiketti's been flashing, I'd say, a little bit more. I think he's had a couple solid pressures in team periods, and he's made some plays against the run as well. So I'd say he's doing a little bit more than Malone is at the current moment. Malone, they've seen ref the first and second team so far. So they're both, getting opportunities. I think you'll probably see Ebiketti start week 1, or at least definitely be in that mix alongside. I think they want to have Lorenzo Carter's probably pretty safe as a starter right now. Ebiketti would be like opposite him. So I think on rundowns you'll see Ogundeji probably start in base. So, but anyways, Ebiketti's probably flashed a little bit more, which is, it's what you'd expect. I think they took him at 37 and they took Malone in, 83 or something like that. So, we're talking 40, 50 picks there. And Ebiketti was a fringe first rounder for a lot of people. So he's been up to expectations. It's not that Malone hasn't. It's just I think he's kind of coming along maybe a little bit slower than Ebiketti has. But long-term picture here, I would say they're both about where they should be. And Ebiketti's probably flashed more, like I said. But I think future's bright for them, obviously. And Ebiketti's probably shown everything that you want to see out of a guy who can potentially get you 5 sacks his rookie year and just keep on, the upward trajectory, just keep on arrow pointing up for him. So we'll see. But pretty promising start for them, I'd say.
No, sir. And I think, obviously, that's going to be key, obviously, for the Falcons, especially because I think the secondary could be the strongest part of the team. But the key to having a great secondary is if you can get a pass rush that makes their job easier and that maybe can create turnovers. So, hey, man, Daniel, I appreciate you coming on to the show, man. Appreciate you giving us some of that Falcons wisdom, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let everybody know where they can find you on social.
Yeah, so Twitter @DFlickDraft. That's where you'll find all my Falcons stuff for the most part. It's about the only platform I have that I'm Falcons oriented. So I write for Falcon Report, which is just Atlanta Falcons Sports Illustrated. And I also do NFL draft content for Around the Block. There's a lot of really, really solid people working for them. Hunter Thompson, Adam Hollowell. So I think you had Adam on the podcast a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, solid dude. So, so Twitter @DFlickDraft is probably the main spot for me. Is that where you found me, Bryce?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm a witness to that. Yes, sir. So Twitter does work. Twitter does work. If you got any questions, you could ask him. I'm sure he'll be love to answer them just in case. So, hey, man. Like I said, man, I appreciate you coming on to the show. Hey, guys. Hey, no problem, man. Hey, guys. So we're about to sign out of here. This was your Atlanta Falcons Fan Show. We'll see y'all next time.